Welcome back, players and coaches. Today we are joined by Lindsay Smith. Lindsay is currently an assistant coach at Cornell College, Division III in Mount Vernon, Iowa. She is one of the best high school women's players. She was four-time All-State, just under 1,500 points in her career, 17 varsity letters during her high school career. Four-sport athlete, great perspective, committed to and played at Wisconsin for her freshman year, and then through the story, which we'll get into, ends her career at St. Ambrose University and now has been coaching for the last few years. Really appreciate Lindsay. She's a great player, coach, and resource. So players, coaches, like, subscribe, put it in your group text, and maybe just a specific portion or the whole thing. Thank you for the support, and thank you for Lindsay for making the time. All right. Thank you, Lindsay, for making the time to join us today. And we'll just kind of, as I was looking forward, and we've known each other since I think you were in 6th or 7th grade. We're beating boys at the Central DeWitt boys basketball camp. And thankfully, I'm a year older, so we never had to play. But I do think when we did play, maybe after camp, I think I won. So with that being said,
I don't remember that part.
Oh, well, we'll have to check with Steinus. Shout out Jeff Steinus, the man, myth, and legend. So Lindsay, really appreciate you making the time. And so just going to get right into this through doing some research. I didn't know about this bet until today. So you played Division I at Wisconsin, which we'll get into here in a second. But tell me about this bet you made with your dad in 4th grade.
Yeah, when I was in 4th grade, a Hummer was just starting to come out. And we test drove one. And for some reason, I thought that was my dream car. And I made a bet with my dad that if I got a Division I scholarship, he had to buy me a Hummer after I graduated. And so I ended up getting one, and by the time I graduated, Hummers were no longer cool. So I didn't end up getting a Hummer, but I did get a car out of it.
Let's go. That's awesome. So what was that journey like? So you're in 4th grade and you decide I'm going to play I'm going to get a Division I scholarship. So was your dad coaching, or when did you start playing, or it's obviously young passion. How did you develop that?
Yeah, at that point I was already playing. My dad coached the high school boys in town, and I had 2 brothers who were also playing. So it was just kind of who we were. We were in the gym all the time. I was a part of a travel team, a school team, played at the boys' camps where I met you. And so it was just, my life was basketball, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps as well and be a coach.
Gotcha. Awesome. And so then you make that goal in 4th grade. And then when did you start to get pretty serious about it, or were at that point were you already really serious in terms of?
I would say middle school was when I joined a bigger travel team, went to some bigger tournaments, and really started to do more with the travel basketball. And then high school, of course, is when scholarship offers start coming and you make visits and all that. So, but it was high school before I really started going full steam in the AAU stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then you were, as I was doing the research, you were a multi-sport athlete. So how did you balance that? Were you getting shots every day, or what was that routine like? Because you were All-State in multiple sports, if I remember correctly.
It was hard, and I didn't realize how hard it was on my parents until I've gotten involved in AAU coaching. But I remember like having softball tournaments on Friday, Saturday, and we'd leave Friday night and go out to Des Moines or go to Chicago or wherever, so I could play in the second day of the basketball tournament. So I missed a lot of club basketball stuff because I had a track meet or a softball tournament or whatever. And my poor parents just ran me all over the country. And a lot of times it wasn't even for the full tournament. But they allowed me to play all the sports in high school that I wanted to, and then still gave me the opportunity to play club basketball.
Yeah, I know that. And so what drove you to play multiple sports? Because now in recruiting, I'm sure you noticed there's less and less, because you did 4, which in Iowa it's a little bit unique with summer softball. Mm-hmm. But I even with elementary, I see kids that they'll stop playing 3 sports when they leave 5th grade. And mm-hmm. So what led to you making the decision that's a little bit now unconventional?
I think just my competitiveness. I wanted to be involved in everything, and having 2 brothers that played other sports, helped that as well. We were always in the backyard playing something, and it wasn't always basketball. So basketball was always my biggest passion, but just being active and playing different sports I wanted to do. And coming from a small school, more people did that. We didn't have the specialization. We didn't have as many athletes in the school, so we had to share. So our coaches worked well together to be able to have open gym in the morning and go to softball right after that and have games and then go to cross country camp later that week. And so being at a small school allowed me to do that. But I think I enjoyed competing no matter what it was, even if it wasn't just basketball. I wanted to be involved in anything I could.
Hmm. Awesome. And then so when you're balancing all of that, what's your routine like in terms of high school? Once you're starting to, you said you're playing the club and you're going all on the weekends. What is your during the week look? Are you getting shots every day? What's that look like?
I would most days, and I was lucky with my dad being a coach. I had access to the high school gym all the time. But a lot of times, like in the fall, we'd have cross country practice after school, and I'd do my workout for that, and then I'd go to the gym once volleyball was done and get some shots up. So I had access to the gym a lot with my dad being there. But I found a way, whether that was 10 o'clock at night, my dad would take me up to the gym. But most times when we weren't in season, I was still getting shots up most days.
And how many makes or what would a normal workout at that time look like?
Usually about an hour. And at that time, my dad kind of just put me through different things. We do a bunch of shooting, a bunch of individual drills, ball handling stuff. So I didn't have to really think too hard about what I was going to do with having a dad as a coach. I had the luxury of someone kind of designing workouts for me. But if it was on my own, I would just do a lot of form shots, a lot of spot shooting at that point.
Mm-hmm. And now, did you guys have the gun when your dad wasn't there to rebound, or what was that?
We had one of those toss back things where you adjusted the net.
Oh, yeah.
So if you didn't make it, it didn't come back to you. So it wasn't as easy as the gun.
Gotcha. And then, so you mentioned that your dad put together the workouts, and you mentioned some ball handling and individual drills. Can you give a little more specifics in terms of like we worked on pull-ups or we worked on this, that, or the other?
Pull-ups was actually a big thing we worked on. He always used to say that's such a hard shot to guard, and it's a hard shot to shoot, and that's why a lot of players can't master that. So we worked on a lot of stuff off the dribble. I was a guard in high school. I played point guard, and so it was a lot of stationary ball handling, two ball handling, anything with hand quickness and handling it. I remember one year we remodeled our weight room at DeWitt, and so they moved all the weight equipment over to the 4-H grounds. So we had this old shed with random weights throughout it, and my dad would he would lift and I would go over and bring a ball, and I just have to handle it around all the equipment, and just handle it in different environments in different size spaces and work on that unconventional handling. So I think he got pretty creative with the stuff that he did.
Mm-hmm. And so then as you're growing up, so how many, like, did you shoot a lot of threes in high school, or was it more pull-up?
I shot a decent amount of threes. I shot a lot of pull-ups in high school, and then I'd get to the rim too. So I wouldn't say in high school the three-point game wasn't where I was taking the most shots. It was more inside the arc.
Gotcha. And so I looked at your career average was 15. How did you, on your better nights because I watched you play a little bit in those nights when you're going over 20, what was your mindset of, I'm going to go out? Was it, I'm going to go out and get 20 or get however many points, or how did it matter? Or was it, hey, I've put the work in, I'm trusting it when I'm open, I'm going to shoot it? What was your mentality to scoring wise as you were going in high school?
It was just kind of what we needed. And I was blessed with Jen Keitel as well. So we had a 6'4", another Division I player on our team. So with us two, we were really good. We had a good high school career together. And so there were games where it wasn't necessary for us to score 20 each and win. And so we could go out and score 15 and 12 and only play 3 quarters and still win pretty handily. So it just kind of depended on the game and what we needed. We knew which games were going to be tougher and which games the ball needed to be in our hands more, and shots needed to come through us more. So there wasn't a certain number of shots or anything like that. We just kind of knew which teams were going to require us to score more.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, and the official numbers are 15, 5.7 rebounds, almost 5 assists, and 3 steals. So a little bit on both ends as well. And then what Quad City Times Female Athlete of the Year. High school was. What do you think? Obviously, you compete at a high level in multiple sports. So outside of just that natural competitiveness, what allowed you to do that and then exceed with the schedule, with that, with everything you had going on? What advice or what drove you outside of just, hey, I'm a really competitive person?
Yeah, I think it was just a desire to be good. And I had, my older brother was a good quarterback. I think he still holds the record for most wins in his high school career. And my younger brother was a good baseball player and played 3 sports as well. So it was just kind of who we were. We were always competing, but just a desire to be good. And almost to a fault, when I was younger, I was super hard on myself. And so if I wasn't happy with the workout, I was staying in the gym for another hour to make sure I got out of it what I wanted. And so that internal motivation to be as good as I could really pushed me.
Gotcha. And so then to kind of shift now to college. So what was the recruiting process like for you? When did it start? What was important in your decision? Who all recruited you, or what? However much detail you'd like to go into.
Mm-hmm. It probably started by my freshman year. I was in it pretty heavy. I got my first sophomore offer the summer before my sophomore year. And it was fun. It's a fun process. You get calls, and at that point coaches weren't texting. I'm not sure if that was not in the rules or texting was just too new then. But we'd get calls and emails and stuff in the mail. And so it's a cool time to be a high school student and know that all these programs around the Midwest, around the country, are interested in you and like you as a player. It got to the point, and I think it was kind of my personality, where it started to stress me out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And before I decided, it was the summer before my senior year, we were playing a softball game, and it was, I don't know, like the bottom of the 7th inning. And I made an error to lose the game. And I remember going up to my parents afterwards, and they're like, you're going to make a college decision tonight. Cause it was weighing on my mind so heavily that it was affecting, other sports and other areas of my life. So it got a little stressful. So I just try to tell kids that we're recruiting now, enjoy this. It's cool. It's fun to visit these places and talk to these coaches and evaluate these programs, and know that these places want you. They want you to be a part of their family.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a cool experience.
And how are you evaluating? Because you kind of, as far as Midwest, if I recall correctly, you kind of were wherever you want to go. I know you chose Wisconsin, but Iowa was your first start, I saw, but you had some Power Fives and whatnot. What made you choose Wisconsin initially?
I went to a camp there, maybe in 8th grade, and really liked it. And obviously grew up a Hawkeye fan, so I was a fan of the Big Ten. I didn't want to go too far from home. Having my parents have the ability to come watch me play was important. So that kind of limited me to the Midwest a little bit. But I just had a connection with the coaches there, liked the distance, liked the campus. And they were in a really good spot in the Big Ten as well when I chose there.
Mm-hmm. And so then, I guess to bounce back to high school real quick, you and Jen were making your run, and then you had your ACL
Mm-hmm.
for the first time. So then your freshman year at Wisconsin, so you get to Wisconsin, and what's your knee like? What's that let's start with, what's the rehab process like at that time for your ACL, and how did you deal with that mentally going into, from the disappointment of the end of your high school career, and then now I got to go play in college for a program that you mentioned was very good at the time?
So I tore my ACL at the state tournament of my senior year, which I don't know if there's a more unfortunate time to tear it than that. That was the one year we made it to state in the first round. I tore my ACL, and actually the day before I had surgery, I found out that my coaches at Wisconsin had gotten fired. And
Wow.
so not only am I going into my freshman year coming off this ACL injury, but I'm coming in with new coaches that didn't recruit me. And that changes the program. And so
And on
I
that a
think
little bit.
when I first tore my ACL, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, she's going to have to redshirt next year. There's no way she's going to be ready." And being who I am, I'm like, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm not going to redshirt. I am going to be ready. And at the time, an ACL was 6 to 9 months recovery, and I was released right at 6 months. But I had some additional hyperextension issues, and I probably came back earlier than I should have because I was stubborn and wanted to prove people wrong. So I wasn't ready for the season. It's already a transition to go from high school to college with the pace and the strength of players and all that. And I just wasn't ready for that with my knee and my conditioning and all that. So looking back, I wish I would have waited and probably redshirted that year, but I still had a good experience, and it drove me to be healthy enough to play.
For sure. So yeah, you go to Wisconsin, and was that you were there when their men's team went to the Final Four, correct? Or right
Yeah.
around that time where Bo Ryan had them rolling.
Yes. So I was the same class as Frank Kaminsky.
Okay, so did you have a relationship with some of those guys? And did you learn stuff from? I guess what did you learn being around all of the good athletes that are just come with being in a Power Five conference?
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's kind of in the weight room working out together. What did you take away from just that initial of like, you know, when you first got there or when you first got released? What was that like?
Yeah. So we went to summer school together, and not all the athletes were there. It was like us in men's basketball and football and hockey. So we did get to know Jared Uthoff was in that class, Trayvon Jackson. And so we did get to know some of the men's players a little bit, but it's just cool to be around that environment, and being freshmen before having played our first year, people aren't as big of a deal because they haven't proven themselves yet. So Frank Kaminsky wasn't who Frank Kaminsky was when I knew him when I was there, but it's still cool to be around the competitive environment and people who are as serious about it as you are.
Mm-hmm. And so what was that schedule like? Because you had the goal, you go in Division I, you accomplished that goal, even though there was some adversity with your knee, you got there, you had rehab, you're ready to roll. What was that schedule like, even with the rehab into it, or just in general throughout the grind of the season and preseason?
The preseason, we lifted at 5 every morning. So we were up pretty early, got our lift in, got our cardio in, and then we were in class, I think, by 8 every morning. We had a freshman class that all the freshman athletes went to. And then I had to always go to rehab. I would always get jealous because some of the other athletes would go home and nap before we had our afternoon workouts, and I was going to rehab for my knee. But then we'd have afternoon workouts and scrimmage and individual workouts and all that. And then you'd have study table. And that was 4 days a week in the summer. So it was pretty rigorous, but it was very routine, and you just got into the habit of doing that.
Mm-hmm. And when you say you got your cardio in, was it more long distance? Was it more sprints? A little bit of everything?
In the summer, it was a little more long distance. As we got closer to the season, there was more shorter speed work type stuff.
Gotcha. And then weights wise, were you concerned? Because obviously everybody lifts now, but at that time, were you concerned about it affecting your shot or your rehab or anything like that? Or was, hey, this is just what the program calls for?
I had no idea. My dad got me in the weight room a few times before I went to college, but it was not like it is now. We didn't have a strength program. We barely had like lifting PE classes. So I did not lift before I got to college. So I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. Was I going to gain weight? Was it going to slow me down? I just kind of went with the flow, and what they told me to do, that's what I did. But my lifting was fairly limited at the beginning because I was just doing rehab or body weight type stuff. So I didn't really get into it too much until I got closer to being released.
Gotcha. So then you go through the summer, you're going, what, 5 days a week at 5 a.m., 4 days of study hall or study table, excuse me, all of that. And so then
Mm-hmm.
school starts. What's the schedule shift to? Because it sounds like you have a little more class and maybe cut back a little bit of that, or what did it look like?
Yep. So we had, they give you your practice time slot, and it's different. They tell you when practice is, and you have to schedule all your classes around that. So I think my first semester, our practice was 1 to 4. So you had to get all your classes in the morning, which made for early mornings a lot, and back-to-back classes. But it was usually you're in class all morning, you go to practice, and then whatever you have, we usually had study table hours or training table treatment, something in the afternoon. So you still had pretty busy days. I remember spending 6 to 8 hours at the Cole Center every day.
Gotcha. And then were they providing you food, or, what was your diet like in terms of, because you're weightlifting, you're spending 6 to 8 hours there. What was nutrition like? And what was the effect of that had?
We'd have training tables, not every day, but I would say 3 or 4 times a week. We'd have training tables where they'd provide us a meal after the workout. And then on the days we didn't have training table, we had vouchers, and they had certain restaurants and grocery stores in town. So you weren't going to get pizza all the time. They had like sub shots and stuff that you got so much money for on days that we didn't have training table.
Gotcha. And then so preseason goes, now we're into the real season. How's your knee feeling at the beginning of that after you've already gone through the summer preseason? Now, how's your body feeling around that time?
It was okay. I felt like I was getting there, and I had some knee pain, but everyone's got, you have ACL surgery, you're not brand new afterwards. There's going to be some residual post-surgery pain. And I had some hyperextension issues with my knee, so they made me wear a brace, which I think got in my head a little bit, and I didn't like it. So I only ended up wearing it for a couple months. So that there was just more mental hurdles, and until you really go through an injury like that, you don't understand. I mean, there's so much of it that's physical that you think you have to overcome, but the biggest part of it is mentally recovering and being well enough mentally to be back to where you were.
What were some of those mental hurdles? Because I've never had a major injury, and so there could be players that are watching this that tore their or got hurt this summer or finishing up their rehab. What are some of those, and what are some of the ways you overcame it?
There's a period in your recovery where you're just kind of building that muscle and getting it strong enough to be able to do some of these things that are basketball movements. And so there was like 2 or 3 months, and it was over the summer when I was there, that it's the same thing every single day, and you feel like you're not progressing. And at the beginning, you get off crutches, you start to walk, you start to jump and do all these things, and things kind of progress quickly. And then you hit this stall period where you're just building muscle, but you're not getting to the point where you can cut and do basketball drills and do any of that. And so that's really tough, because you feel like you're capable of doing things, but your trainer says no, because there's this protocol that you have to follow. But just being able to do things for the first time, jumping off my knee to shoot a layup for the first time, is kind of scary. And it's something that I would have never thought about before I got hurt, but you don't trust your body as much as you used to. So playing and doing these activities again and learning to trust your body again, it does take some time, and you have to do it to be able to trust that you can do it again.
Mm-hmm. And then so you're into Big Ten play, and you get your first start, University of Iowa, hour away. How many family members were at the game?
Oh,
Did you know
gosh.
you were starting? I'll ask before. Did you know you were starting before the game?
I found out I was starting about 20 minutes before the game.
Okay.
It was like right before we went out for warm-ups. And I think the whole town of DeWitt was there. My parents were actually kind of running late. They had to park further away. And so they walked in and saw my name up on the board that I was starting. So they had no idea either. So but I think it was better that I didn't have time to think about it before before I went out there. But such a cool experience to have my first collegiate start in Iowa.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then so how does your freshman year finish up team wise, record wise? How are you feeling at the end of it?
We struggled a little bit, and this was a team that finished third in the Big Ten the year before, and was feeling pretty good, and was actually one win away from clinching first place, and ended up having a couple injuries that took that away from them. And then the next year, my freshman year, we struggled with the coaching change and all that. It was a tougher year. I think we went 9-21 that year, finished 11th in the Big Ten. So not a super successful year.
Okay. And then how are you feeling about it just as an athlete? Because freshman year, it was a lot. Just from our conversation right now of battling all the way back from an injury and then finally getting some starts, getting some minutes. The team's not being it doesn't have a successful year, but you're, playing a little bit throughout. And then the summer hits. So what happens?
I just wanted to take on that challenge. I didn't feel like I could give my best self because I rushed back from the injury so much. And the whole year it was about overcoming the knee. And so I was excited to actually get better in the off season and work on basketball stuff and my strength and all that, and not have to work on my knee. So I was excited for the summer to tackle that and help us be better than we were the year before.
Mm-hmm. And then, so what was your biggest takeaway from your freshman year, thinking back and now coaching college where you see freshmen every year? What did you take away and what do you really try to instill with college freshmen?
I think looking at my college experience, in high school, I started every single game. Except the one game I didn't play from my ACL. I played a lot, and I get to college and here I was an all-state kid in high school, and I get to college and I'm not the best player, and I'm not starting right away. And even if I was healthy, I might not have started right away. And eventually worked my way into the starting lineup a few times, but was kind of in and out, and my minutes were up and down. I'd have games where I played 22, 24 minutes and games where I played 6. And it's just kind of part of the freshman experience. And I think freshmen kind of sometimes get frustrated with that up and down of their freshman year, and they're not used to that. They've never played that role before, because a lot of times they're coming in as one of the best players from their high school team, and so they played 4 years of varsity and played a lot, and so that's a transition for them. So I think having gone through that, you just have to be patient and know that it's coming. If you put the work in, it's going to come. It might not come 3 months into your college career, but it's going to come at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So then freshman year's over, you're ready to have your first real summer to work on your game. And you stayed there, or did you move on to Illinois State?
Nope, I stayed there through the first semester of my sophomore year.
Okay. And then transferred to Illinois State. How did you choose Illinois State after leaving Wisconsin?
So I actually really liked Illinois State during the recruiting process, and was actually ready to commit there my junior year. And then that coach left and took the Missouri job. And at the time, Missouri wasn't very good, and it was a rebuilding program. And I wanted to go somewhere that was going to win right away. I was competitive, and I didn't want to go somewhere where I had to be the rebuilder and wasn't going to see the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go somewhere where we were going to have a chance to win a conference championship. And so that Illinois State was that place. And after that coach left, I didn't get to know the new coaches there until I transferred. So when I decided to transfer, that was the first place I looked, because I liked the school. I liked the girls on the team there. And so I thought that would be a place that I would like to be. So that was the first place I looked when I decided to transfer.
Gotcha. And so you transferred that semester. And I haven't been in the college game. What was the rule? You had to sit out that second?
I still had to sit out a year.
Okay.
So I sat out second semester of my sophomore year and first semester of my junior year.
Okay. So then you joined the team after winter break. And well, I guess so. What was that like just to practice for a year? Because you mentioned that there wasn't a summer. So then they had the summer Wisconsin transfer semester. Now you have that full year. And how was your body feeling? What were you working on? What was your mentality?
So I actually took 6 months off, completely off, no basketball activity. I was still at practice and at games and stuff, but I was dealing with some pretty bad hip issues at the time, and hadn't really gotten it checked out a lot. The doctors weren't quite sure what it was, but they just wanted me to completely rest and try to get the inflammation down and see if we could start back up after 6 months and things would be better. So my first semester at Illinois State, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't practicing. I was doing a little flexibility rehab stuff, but otherwise I was just resting my body. So I didn't start until June when we came back from the summer. That's when I really started to play at Illinois State.
Mm-hmm. And was it a similar schedule to Wisconsin, 5 days a week of conditioning, weights, study hall, probably some intermittent classes throughout, but a lot of working out?
Yes. Yep. Very similar in the summer. We took, I think, 2 classes and had a couple workouts throughout the day. That was the summer that the NCAA allowed us to practice, to do individual work. Before it was just kind of on our own. But that was the summer that the coaches were allowed to be in there with us. And I think we did like small groups of 4. So we had that a couple times a week. We had team scrimmages a couple times a week, and then workouts in the weight room as well.
And so you mentioned this earlier. So some of the players you're playing with are also some of their obviously usually the best player on their high school team. Where were a lot of the girls you were playing with, or who were some of the best teammates you had throughout your college career, and what made them so good?
Oh gosh. Probably one of my best friends is Jackie Golzinski. She's from Carroll Stream, Illinois. She's actually living out in Oregon right now. She's an architect out there. But she was I don't know how tall she is, 6'1", 6'2", lanky 4 type player, lefty, that really made her hard to guard. And so she was at Wisconsin. I had a couple different players at Wisconsin or at Illinois State. Katie Wingy, she was the same age as me, and we went through some stuff together with that program, but she really had a good end to her career. And now she's, I don't know exactly what she is. I want to say an in-game analyst for the Denver Nuggets. So she's still in basketball as well, but it really is the bond that you create with your teammates and the wars that you go through, the grind that you go through, playing the games and all that. It bonds you so much. And so some of these girls, they're going to be friends for life, and transferring was not easy. There's some challenges that go with that, but I've got a lot of friends from Wisconsin, and I've got a lot of friends from Illinois State as well. So one of the blessings was I was able to meet more people and make more friends.
Mm-hmm. And so then go to Illinois State so you're in summer, you're doing the workouts, and then so this is going to be where's your clock at NCAA wise? How much eligibility do you still have left? Because you played a year and a half at Wisconsin, year of rehab. So did they take that second semester away, or did you still have 2.5 to play?
So they took away my sophomore year. I played like 22 minutes total before I transferred at Wisconsin, and that counted as a season. And so they took that away, but I ended up appealing and finding out before my senior year that I got that year back as a redshirt. So I played, I don't even know what it's called. I just call it a 5th year, I guess. So what would be my traditional junior year? I got to play the second semester of that.
At Illinois State, and then you transferred back to
So then I played one more year at Illinois State. So I played my traditional senior year at Illinois State. I played, and then I played my 5th year at Ambrose.
Okay, so then how does it go? So what was your time like at Illinois State in terms of the team? How you already mentioned you had a couple of friends, but how were you guys just as a program?
It was rough.
Okay.
So I transferred at semester my sophomore year. And then at the end of that season, those coaches left and took a different job. So now I'm 2 years into my college career, and I've gone through 4 coaching staffs. So again, the coaches that I committed to at Illinois State are no longer there, and I'm going to play for someone different. And that year, the year that I transferred, they got second in the Valley, and we're close to going to the NCAA tournament. And the next year we got sixth, and the next year we got last. And so it went downhill fast. And we had a good group of girls. We had some talent, and I loved the team. It just wasn't a great culture, and culture drives a lot of that. It doesn't matter how talented you are if you don't have a good culture, if you don't have a good environment to work with, you're going to underachieve. And that's kind of what we did.
Yeah, the standards and behaviors that you operate on the day-to-day are kind of important. Okay, so then you finish up there, you're getting your 5th year of eligibility, and you go to St. Ambrose NAI school. At this point, how's your body feeling? Any more injuries? You had mentioned hips. So what is that like? And what at this point, I'm not want to say why you're still playing, but you're probably playing more of a love of the game versus the player a little bit.
I got that question a lot. Why are you putting your body through this? And so the end of my junior year, going into my senior year, I ended up having 3 surgeries on my hips, 2 of them in April and then 1 in June, and then worked my way back to play for my senior year. And a week before I was released to play, I tore my knee in practice again. So I had 4 surgeries that year. And then at that point, things at Illinois State were not enjoyable. And I got my 5th year of eligibility, and I just thought, one, my body can't handle this anymore. I can't play to the level that I used to be able to play at. I at 22 years old, I wasn't as good of a player as I was at 18. And that was hard. That was hard mentally to take. And 2, I had to work so hard just to be healthy enough to play. And it's not worth it if I'm going to be in this environment that I don't enjoy, and I'm just going to wish away my last year. And so that's why I decided to transfer to Ambrose, and I got a good season out of it. I played most of the games. I think I missed 4 games of my 5th year because of injuries, but considering how much I played in the previous 4 years, that was a successful season. Sure. So I got to end on a good note. My body was pretty beaten up at that point, and I was kind of on the Kobe regimen. I didn't practice a whole lot. I saved my body for the games and took a lot of days off on practice days, but I made it through a season.
That's great. Yeah, you got to have 2 that you made it through. Gotcha. So then, wow. So then now you're at Ambrose. You've got a wide variety of experience. What was your relationship with players? Because you mentioned at 18, and I don't know if some of these girls were from DeWitt or from your conference, but there was people that probably maybe have seen you when they were younger. Did that come up on the team at all? Or
there was a couple girls I knew. One of them, Emily Soy, was from Eldridge, and so I played against her a lot. There was another girl from my conference, another girl that I remembered from camp. So that was kind of nice because my other 2 schools I was going, I didn't know anyone. So I was going to a school where I didn't necessarily have friends at the time, but I knew who people were, and people were familiar with me, and they were awesome. I'm sure as someone coming in as a 5th year senior, and just playing for 1 year, I'm sure that's a tough transition for people, but they were so accepting of me and really great teammates for me my whole year.
And what was the NAI schedule like? Was it similar to Illinois State and Wisconsin, or was it slightly different?
It's a little different. There's not as many rules at NAIA. We started practice, I think it was October 1st, but we scrimmaged before that. There wasn't many rules in terms of that. In the summer, people aren't on campus. There's not as many resources. So lifting was on our own. We were given workouts, but you just kind of fit it in where you could, and everyone had different class schedules. So there wasn't as much as a team going on until practice started. So it was a little bit different, but we still did a lot in terms of workouts.
Gotcha. And then, so now to shift. So you finished up your career at Ambrose. You guys made the national tournament.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yep.
then what happened? Or then you got into coaching, right?
Yes. Yep. So I graduated from Ambrose, and the next week I started coaching at Cornell.
Nice. And so that's a Division III. So what's that schedule like as classes kind of get started post derecho and
Yeah.
COVID and everything? What's a typical in your previous seasons? What would this time of year for your girls on the team look like?
Yeah.
What does it look
Division III is a lot different. There's stricter rules as to what we can do. So we don't start practice until October 15th. And so before then, our girls can do some strength and conditioning stuff. And I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach, so I put them through all of that. So that's been nice that I can spend that time with them in the weight room. But we don't get any time on the court with them before October 15th. So we'll book gym time for them to get some skill work in and scrimmage if they want to. But otherwise there's no workouts with a basketball with us. And same thing over the summer. Most of our players will go home for the summer. So we'll send them home with workouts. But we're not able to do any team organized basketball activity until October 15th.
Okay. And so what are you doing now as a coach between now and then outside of the weight room stuff?
We'll do some team bonding stuff. We've got different stuff. We'll go on a camping trip and we'll have the team over for dinner at our head coach's house, and different player meetings. We'll meet in small groups for breakfast some days, just to build those relationships, because you don't get as much time with them outside of the season. So we kind of have to be creative with making time with them off the court.
And then, so now what's recruiting been like this summer, or if you were a high school, what advice are you telling recruits, or in general for girls or boys that are seniors and trying to get recruited in this time of what's our season look like? Are we going to have a season?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Recruiting's been different. It hasn't necessarily been bad, but it's certainly been different. We haven't been able to go out. Well, there just hasn't been as many tournaments. And then there's been restrictions on travel. And so we haven't been able to go to many of the ones that have happened. So a lot of the recruiting has happened online. So I'll get emails with players' videos with Huddle, YouTube, and all that. And so a lot of it is happening more online, and then we'll do some of our visits via Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. But the nice thing is kids weren't in school for the last 2 months, and parents weren't working for a while. And so we did get to talk to a lot of players, a lot of recruits during that time that we might not have had the opportunity to talk to, because there just wasn't as much going on. But I think for players, don't be afraid to initiate the recruiting process. I think there just wasn't as much time for us to see you. So for you to email us, I'm still going to watch that video. And so if you've got a Huddle account or any of these recruiting services, NCSA or NSR, don't be afraid to send that out to coaches that you're interested in, of schools that you're interested in, and just kind of take charge of your own recruiting process. Because we didn't have the opportunity to go out and see you doesn't mean you can't put yourself in front of us for us to see you.
Mm-hmm. And would you as a coach prefer highlight game coaches? What do you want? If I'm a player that's going to reach out, I want to play for you, what would you want included in that email? What's important to you or helps you?
Highlights is preferable. Watching an hour-long game, and sometimes the quality is not great, so I can't even tell who you are. But watching a highlight, Huddle puts together really good highlights. And you can see a lot. We can see how a player moves and how someone shoots it and all that through a highlight. At the Division III level, GPA is important. So including your GPA in there as well is something that we'd like to know right away.
Okay, cool. So that's That's very helpful. And then as far as evaluating, when you go out and evaluate players once we can or this high school season, what's kind of along your checklist, or what do you mentioned the way girls move, what else are you looking at?
Everyone wants length and size. We're not afraid of smaller guards, but oh, I'm sorry. Ben just got home and now Ellie's going to freak out.
No worries.
Hi, Ben. So length and size is something that we're always looking for, but just players that give energy. There's certain things that you can teach a player and certain things you can't. And having that energy, having that motor where I don't have to coach your energy or your effort during practice. That's something that we look for.
Gotcha. And then, cool. And then I guess what would be your biggest advice to a player that has used this time to really get better and they may not get a senior season? What about that player that was looking for that jump? How if maybe I was a junior at a really good program and I don't have much tape, what is there anything I can do to help myself there? Because if I don't have the stats yet, but I was sitting behind somebody like you or somebody that went and played collegiate basketball, I'm a backup point guard coming into my senior year, what advice or guidance could you give that person?
Mm-hmm. Putting yourself out there, having someone advocate for you. We like to talk to high school coaches and club coaches, and they know these players well, and even someone who didn't get to play a lot and doesn't have the stats to show, they're in practice every day with their coach, and hopefully their coach knows if they can compete at this level. And so having your coaches help you, and parents as well. We talk to parents too, but having other people advocate for you. I know this is a tough time, and people have lost a lot during this time. We just try to take everything in stride and make the most of what we're going to have. Right now, our season's supposed to be suspended until January, so we're not going to have any games until after Christmas break, and that stinks for our seniors. This is their last chance to play basketball, and right now they might only get 10 games in their senior year, and hopefully we can at least give them that. But just try to make the most of this opportunity, and especially in high school, there's going to be more basketball for you to play. And a lot of it is determined by your mindset and your attitude and how you attack this challenge.
Awesome. And then just your overall, what are your favorite drills to do with your players or when you were a player that you would do?
As an individual?
Yeah. So if I'm a person that, hey, yeah, I'm trying to attack the day every day, I'm working on my game. Coming from a very good player, and what were you doing? Or we talked a little bit about some of the things in your workout, but what are some specific drills or things that you feel like can make a big time impact and help a player make a jump?
I would do a lot off the dribble, especially in college. Everyone's got to be able to handle it, and you might not have to break pressure against a guard, but you're going to have to handle it at some point. So to be able to dribble with both hands, both directions. I did a lot of two-ball stuff. I did a lot of just creative stuff with dribbling, and a lot of it is stuff that you're not necessarily going to do in a game, but it forces you to handle it in different situations. So if you do have a defender on you, if you do lose control of it a little bit, you're able to handle that. So I would do a lot of two-ball, tennis ball, that kind of stuff. And then stuff off the dribble I really worked on, and just getting a lot of shots up in general. My biggest thing that I think drove me was I always had a goal when I was working out, and I think some kids struggle knowing what to do, and there's so many resources out there. You can go on YouTube and find anything to do, basketball drill wise. But have a goal in mind. So you're not just going out to shoot. You're going out and whatever it is, I'm going to make 10 pull-ups going to the left, 10 pull-ups going to the right. Or I would do every game day at Ambrose, I'd go in with my dad as a rebounder, and I would shoot a shot, and if I made it, I took a step over, and if I missed it, I took a step back, and I'd have to go all the way around the arc and back, and just having a plan, and you have to make 5 in a row before you move spots or something like that, so that there's some motivation for you, there's some drive for you, and there's a purpose to your workout.
Mm-hmm. So some sort of challenge you're competing against,
Mm-hmm.
a score, probably not an opponent, but yeah, score or time or something like that.
Yeah. So with our team, we always, especially when we do guard breakdown stuff, we always finish a drill with some sort of goal. It might be we have to make 10 before this time, or finish with 5 in a row, or we do a beat the clock game, where everyone's got to make so many in a row before the clock ends, so that there's purpose to it, and you're not just out there throwing up shots. You're trying to be competitive. You're trying to win.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's very important. So, well, thank you, Lindsay. Anything else that you'd like to share? Fun stories, shout outs. What is your Twitter, email, Instagram, all that stuff? So if people, after they watch this, want to get in touch with you to either come play at Cornell, or maybe it's somebody that's battling an injury, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, my Twitter and Instagram is Lindsay Smith 12. I'm not the biggest tweeter person, but I get on to look at like scores and stuff. But my email is lsmith@cornellcollege.edu. And if you want my phone number, you can ask Joel for that too.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. They have to work harder for that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Lindsay. Really appreciate you making the time. Stay safe, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.